How's it going, everybody? This is BeatTheBush. Here's the situation. You just passed by a gas station that sells gas for $4 a gallon. You drove a mile down and then you suddenly see the gas station selling it for $4.10. It's a little bit more expensive, but should you drive back to fill up at a cheaper gas station or not? Is this even worth it? Today, I'm gonna offer you a quick way to calculate if you should go back or not and other ways of saving money on gas. This video is brought to you by the Moomoo app. Moomoo is another free trading app that's giving away free stocks. The app itself is owned by Futu Incorporated. They are a member of FINRA and also SIPC, so you can be sure that your money is safe when you deposit it with them. Right now, they have a promotion where if you play a game and you are ranked first 5,000, you're gonna get a share of this $200,000. Right now, even if you just open up an account, you'll still get a free share of stock worth $300 to $350. If you decide to deposit a little bit more, $2,000 will get you a free share of General Motors worth about $57. Check out my referral link down in the video description below. Well, this is quite a problem because you have a lot of variables here and many people is not gonna sit around trying to calculate if it is cheaper or not. Many people will drive to a cheaper gas station just because it's 10 cents cheaper, and this would be considered penny pinching. The IRS has figured out a good round number for everybody to use. This includes depreciation of the car, the gas itself, insurance, all the other associated costs with running a car. But this may not apply to everyone. Sometimes when you drive a car, it might be cheaper. Other times, you might be driving a very nice car and it'll be more expensive for you. Now, let's say your tank is mostly empty and you need to fill out about 10 gallons. It's 10 cents cheaper, therefore you're gonna save $1. If the IRS is correct and it costs you 56 cents to drive to this gas station, by the time you drive back, it's 2 times that, which is $1.12. This is more expensive than the $1 that you save on gas and the time that it takes you to go there and come back. I'm gonna share what I think of this IRS 56 cents per mile. To me, I used to think this was kind of high because I drove a really cheap car. The gas alone, depending on how much you pay for gas and the gas efficiency of your car, it's gonna hover somewhere about 13 cents for every single mile. So this is much less than 56 cents. So where does the rest go? The rest is 43 cents. You already sunk in a bunch of costs in buying the car. If let's say you put 10,000 additional miles on the car, you're gonna end up having to change the oil a lot more often. You're gonna have to change the tires a lot more often. So this maintenance cost is gonna increase as you drive the car more. Ask the Uber drivers who heavily uses their car. Their car would reach end of life much quicker. And then at the end of the life of the car, they have to buy a new one. Things you need to know to figure out if it's worth it to drive to that cheaper gas station. One of them is how much gas you're gonna fill up. The more that you fill of a cheaper gasoline, the more you're gonna save. So if you drive really far just to save 10 cents and you fill up 1 or 2 gallons, of course this is not gonna be worth it. So you want your gas tank to be as empty as possible so you can put a lot of gas in there for your effort of going to this cheaper gas station. It's best practice to fill up your gas once your gas reaches a little bit less than a quarter tank or so. So you have a little buffer room to do whatever you need. You're not gonna run out of gas in the middle of the road or anything. But if you are on a regular commute to and from work and it is very, very predictable on how many miles you drive, then you can cut a little bit closer to an empty tank, and then when you do fill up, you're gonna fill up a lot more. This also has the benefit of you going to the gas station a little bit less over time because each time that you fill up your gas, you are putting more in. Another thing to think about is how expensive is your car. A typical car lasts around 150 to 200,000 miles. Now, not everyone's gonna drive it until the end of life. Many people just drive it for a few years. They sell the car, they get a new one, maybe they lease their car. But even if you use the car for less than the entire lifespan of the car, you can still use this formula to figure out how much it costs you every single mile. The idea being if you consume, let's say 30,000 miles and then sell the car, well, you're going to depreciate the car accordingly and people are gonna pay a little bit less for your car for having more miles. So look, if you bought a $70,000 car It's gonna last 150,000 miles. This is costing you 47 cents a mile. Not everyone's gonna have a car that costs $70,000, maybe it's $50,000. So you do the same thing, it's 33 cents a mile. For a $30,000 car, it's gonna cost you 20 cents a mile. So you can see the cost per mile varies greatly depending on the type of car that you have. If you have a fancy sports car, it makes it all that much not worth it to drive to a gas station that is only 10 cents cheaper. You also need to add in maintenance and tires. In my experience, it costs about $2,000 a year, depending on the car again, and you might drive, let's say, 10,000 miles. So just maintenance itself, you know, like the oil change, the tires, which are very expensive, maybe like $1,000 right there, it's gonna cost you about 20 cents per mile. And then for insurance, you probably don't need to add a little bit more insurance costs just because you drive to a gas station a little bit farther away, because the additional amount of miles is not all that much. You're going to use your insurance anyway, so for this calculation, you don't have to factor in insurance. Frugal-minded people would also want to go to Costco, but every single time I see people line up, it's about 5 or 6 car deep. On off-peak hours, it's 0. You just go right in and then you can fill up. But most of the time during the day, I average about 5 to 10 minutes or so. So this is a waste of time. The strategy I've come up with is you only want to get Costco gas if you happen to pass by a Costco en route to wherever you're going. Or maybe if you live next to a Costco, then yeah, go and get it at off-peak hours. However, I personally don't have a Costco membership, but you can go with a friend to buy gift cards. These gift cards will allow you to use them at the gas station, and you don't need to, you know, stick in another membership or anything. Just use those gift cards and then you can fill up at Costco if you really want to. But in my experience, I don't use Costco gas all that often because I have a cashback credit card, either 5% or 10%. And if you're lucky enough to get a 10% cashback credit card on gasoline, it's roughly equivalent in pricing for if you find a cheap gas station using 10% off cashback compared to Costco gas prices. Those are roughly equivalent. But if you use a 5% cashback, it's still a little bit more expensive than Costco gas. Now, how do you find the cheapest gas station? Go on gasbuddy.com. You can go on your mobile phone, look around on a map and figure out where is the cheapest gas before you actually go to it. You definitely don't want to just hunt around driving your car to go find cheap gas. You want to have an internet access on your phone, and then you can pinpoint right where the cheapest gas station is en route to wherever you're going. I figure I also add in some tips on how to save money on gas as well. So here goes. You gotta make sure you inflate your tires properly. You probably need to check every single month or so if you have tires that aren't leaking too much. Having deflated tires can reduce your mileage by a couple miles per gallon. This becomes significant. If it's 3 miles a gallon, this is 10% less miles. That's essentially paying 10% more in your gasoline. You should also drive like a granny. When you accelerate a lot, you burn more gas. Accelerate slowly and you're gonna use less gas, and also limit your top speed to what? 65, but that might be too slow. So maybe 75 is your top speed. Don't go 90 miles an hour, don't go 100 miles an hour. It really eats into the gas. Remove all heavy things from the trunk. Drive with the windows up because this is more aerodynamic. If you have the windows down, the wind goes into the car and it does this fluttering thing and it adds additional drag to the car. Speaking of drag, if you have a bicycle rack in the front of your car, the back of your car, the top of your car, all this reduces your gas mileage. So if you're not carrying a bicycle, you really should remove that bicycle rack. And like I said, use a cashback credit card. Use the lowest octane for gas. I know some people like to baby their car. Their car says use only octane 93, and then you're like, oh my gosh, I need to follow what it says. But hey, I drove a Porsche Boxster and I put in the lowest grade the entire life of the car. And it still operated until I used it until it's dead, like 180,000 miles or something. And to understand why this works is that most modern cars, even if you put in a low octane rating, it has a thing called anti-knock control in the computer. The higher the octane, the slower it makes the fuel burn. When you have aerosolized gasoline and you compress it, sometimes it might explode. The octane rating keeps it from exploding because you want to compress it to a certain point and then you ignite it and then it explodes, right? So if it explodes before your intention, this is knock. This is essentially going to press it, it explodes, and then push back, and then all of a sudden you can hear some kind of pinging in your engine. So the octane rating is to make it so that the fuel won't explode so early. But modern engine these days will adjust the timing and all that so that you don't have all this knocking and stuff. So essentially, when you put in lower octane rating, you will indeed feel that there's a tiny bit less power. If you're doing daily commuting, it's not noticeable. However, if one day you go, oh, I feel a little rich, I'm gonna put in some 92 octane, baby. You bring a day. I like you. I'm gonna put in 92 octane today, baby. You're gonna suddenly feel like, hey, how come my car has a little bit more power now? Technically, the energy content is supposed to be roughly the same. It's tuned for that octane rating so that it has peak power when you use that kind of octane. There is controversy if you should get gas in the morning or in the evening, because there is a temperature difference. Gasoline has a certain thermal expansion. When it's hot, it becomes a few percent bigger in volume. So technically, you want to get your gas as cold as possible. And if the pump is measuring at a certain volume, you're gonna get more gas when it's cold. But gasoline station adjusts for this. For example, if you're in Canada, right? It's colder. They're gonna go, okay, you know, it's around this kind of temperature. We're gonna charge you this amount for this kind of volume. Those tanks where it stores most of the fuel, it's underground. It's quite insulated. No matter how hot you get, you know, ambient temperature reaches 100 or something, it's really hard to get underground and make all that fuel change in temperature. So if you're at a gas station that is often used, it really doesn't really matter if you get it in the morning or at night. The temperature of the gas is gonna be roughly around the same. The thing you do need to watch out for is if you go to a gas station that looks like it's in the middle of nowhere and no one has been using it and it's really, really hot, then perhaps the first maybe half gallon or 1 gallon of fuel that's stuck in the fuel pump might be quite hot. And that portion of it, you know, you might not be getting as good a deal. But as soon as the fuel from the tank comes up, goes into your car, the temperature of that is whatever it is in equilibrium down in the tank. So then it doesn't make that much of a difference because only the first gallon or so is gonna have that thermal expansion. Lastly, if you don't want to pay a lot for gas, gas is $4 a gallon in California. If you don't wanna pay for this, don't buy a gas car. Or buy an electric car if you can. Thanks for watching this video. Don't forget to give me a like and subscribe for more. Thanks for watching.